Hello, my most amazing and awesome artists. Today you're going to get back your beautiful oops that we dropped our paint on and blew around with a straw last week. You had to give up a little bit of control, which might have been a little uncomfortable for you, to be okay with something not being so perfect. You're going to have your name on the back of that paper already, hopefully, so you'll be able to tell which one's yours. Now, let's revisit that book, Beautiful Oops, really quickly. Let's see what we think we might do today based on the inspiration from the book. So, he had a spilled paint cup there. Now, what did he do to that paint that was spilled? It was turned into something else, like a happy accident. So that spilled paint became an elephant. Inside that elephant, there were different animals in there. They went back on top of that paint and turned it into something else. So today, just like in the book, Beautiful Oops, we're going to be turning our paint splatters into different things that we might recognize. So just like every spill, every smudge, or every smear, we're going to be revisiting our Beautiful Oops and looking for where we can make magic appear inside those smudges, smears, or splats of paint. So we're going to go back with some Sharpie pens on top, very similar to how the author, Barney Salzberg, did on this page right here. Now, even the negative space, which we learned about last week, that negative space is that space around objects. So that white space that was left on the corners of your paper or maybe in between some of your paints, just like this stain here, might be important in when we're looking for that magic that we can make appear. So even if you have a hole in your paper, we can turn it into something else today, just like in the book. You're going to become art detectives today. That way, when you think that you made a mistake, we can turn it into something beautiful. So I need you to put your art detective thinking caps on today. You got them on? Are you sure you got them on tight? You need that art detective thinking cap on today to think like a detective. We are going to be taking out our imaginary magnifying glasses and taking a very close look at our beautiful oops. We're going to be looking at anything we might recognize. Just like if you go cloud gazing, if you go outside and look up at the clouds, you might see something different than your friend. So we're going to try to recognize those things today using a Sharpie marker. Now these Sharpies are not the Sharpies we usually use. They have a very, very fine point. That means if you press down really hard, they could break. So you want to use them very gently and treat them nicely, knowing that we don't have any replacements today. So please make sure that you're using them very carefully, not pressing down too hard, and kind of using it at an angle. When I'm using my Sharpie, I am going to start out by outlining all of my paint splatters. So I'm going along my edges and outlining any area where that paint is outlined by white. I'm going right over top of every little curve, staying very closely and hugging the paint splatter. I'm hugging as tight as I can close to that paint splatter, taking my time going around every little bump. What this is going to do is help me see different things that I might discover inside my paint splatter. So soon you will notice that as I outline, I start discovering different things. I might say, the way that paint curved looked like waves, so I drew a boat on top of it and a shark in the water and a guy jumping out of the boat. Then I saw that that paint splatter looked like a hand and it looked like a rock on symbol for sign language. So I did write rock on top of there. Now this might look like a shark and I'm using all of those little fins and everything. Maybe I create imaginary creatures. It doesn't have to exist. I could add eyes to anything and make up my own creatures. You can make up your imaginary things. You can make people. You could find shoes, you could find animals, you can find anything in there. But try to draw the picture instead of writing words. We're going to try our best to avoid writing any words to show that you can draw those things. We want to show whoever's looking at these what it is in our drawings. If you need to write something, the only exception is if it really adds to your drawing. If you say, is there any other way I can show what this is besides writing it? So the only time I wrote is when I said rock on. That one, it was just just so people made sure they knew what my symbol was and that that was a hand. That is the only exception, is if you are writing something that really adds to your drawing and something that you could not draw instead. So think about it first. Instead of writing it, could you draw it? Could you add clues or details to show what that thing is? So I really, instead of writing rock on, I could have added things like more fingernails or rings or bracelets to make sure everyone knew that it was a hand. Another thing I want to think about is how I might see things differently than a friend. If you're looking up at the clouds, you're going to see different shapes, different things that you recognize than maybe your friend. You're looking up at the clouds one day and you see a bunny, but maybe your friend sees a spaceship and an alien. Everybody has a different brain and views things differently. Everyone thinks differently, and that's okay. That's what makes us incredible, because everybody thinks creatively and differently. So today, while you're looking for your own clues as an art detective, I want you to also take the time to ask a friend at your table what they might see in your drawing. If you get stuck, just keep outlining. You might find something along the way. Now you'll notice that I stopped outlining around my edges and I started outlining inside of my paint spotter. Also, if your pen stops working today, you can flip it over and give it a little scribble in the back. Sometimes that pen, the ink might just be stopped up in it and you need to scribble for it to flow again. But sometimes the pen really does run out, but please check first to see if it will work by scribbling on the back. Then you'll see I'm outlining the inside lines where there's a difference in paint color. I'm outlining those lines to show that there are things inside my paint that I can find too. I might find different pictures inside that paint in addition to outside using that negative space. You want to pay attention to every way and every shape that all of those lines form in that paint and try to see what you could turn it into using those art detective thinking caps today. All right, artists, have fun and get started with your Sharpies, being very careful, outlining your lines and looking for clues and adding details to recognize them. All right, artists, have fun today.